Welcome to the Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life with Vickie Washburn. Vickie and her guests will share their journey of the golden years and how they're creating a vibrant life. Topics will include family, fun, life, love, travel, and everything Boomer. You too can have the best of your vibrant life now. We are broadcasting from Global Voice Radio every week, and now here's your host, Vickie Washburn.
Hello, everyone. This is Vickie Washburn with the Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit more about this thing called aging. You know, I am 62 years old, or I will be shortly. And one of the things that has really struck me about this is that in my younger years, I would have called this age, someone who was this age, a senior. Now, here I am, this age, and I don't feel like a senior. So, you know, what is it that we are supposed to do in this stage of our lives? I listened to a wonderful TED Talk, and I just want to share some things that I got out of that with you. One of the many revolutions over the last century, but perhaps none more significant, is the longevity revolution. Everybody is seeking to live longer, live healthier, live more vibrantly, look younger, act younger, be younger for longer. Today, on average, we're living 34 years longer than our great-grandparents. On average. Now, my great-grandparents, my grandfather lived to only be 68. My grandmother lived to be 90. So I don't know if I'll live 30 years beyond my grandmother, but I intend to live 30 years beyond my grandfather. What that means is that's an entire second adult lifetime that's been added to your lifespan. If you live 30 years beyond what your grandparents did, that's almost a whole nother adulthood. Think about that. And yet, for the most part, our culture has not come to terms with what this truly means. There is not good support systems in place for people living longer. There is not an attitude, really. You know, we're kind of forced out of the workplace at a certain age. People have an attitude of our limitations. And really, our limitations are only what we allow. I heard this just recently, a friend of mine who's a couple of years older than I am, about a website called, I think it's called lynda.com. And you can take all kinds of courses on there, and it's like a monthly subscription, and you can take courses on everything from sewing to computer programs to just about anything and everything you could want. It's a cheap way to keep your mind active and to learn new skills. And why shouldn't we be learning new skills? Just because we are in what some call the third act or the last act or our sunset years or whatever you want to call them, doesn't mean that we can't keep growing. And in fact, that may be exactly what our purpose in this life at this stage is. Our culture has not come to terms with people living longer. We're still living with the old paradigm of age as an arch. You're born, you peak in middle age, you decline, you die. It doesn't have to be this way. In fact, I just watched a video about a woman who's 105 years old in England, still drives, does yoga every morning. She was very articulate. She was very spry. She was very mobile. She moved quickly and with ease as if she was in her 40s. It was pretty remarkable. It doesn't have to be the way society tells us. In fact, many people today, philosophers, artists, doctors, scientists, are taking a new look at what I call the third act, the last 3 decades of your life. They are starting to realize this is actually a developmental stage of life with its own significance and is different from midlife as adolescence is from childhood. And they are asking, we should all be asking, how do we use this time? How do we live it successfully? What is the appropriate new metaphor for aging? Why does this time in life have to be lonely? Why does this time in life have to be a time of decline? The last couple of years, I have spent reevaluating my life. I have decided that this is not going to be a time of decline for me. Instead, this is going to be a time of growth, a time of gaining knowledge, a time of coming to peace with my past, with my youth, with the world, a time to develop new relationships, to strengthen old relationships. It does not have to be that arch that they have led us to believe that it is. And in fact, in this TED Talk, it talked about it being a staircase, the upward ascension of the human spirit, bringing us into wisdom, wholeness, and authenticity. Age not at all as pathology, but as potential. This potential is not for the lucky few. It turns out most people over 50 feel better, are less stressed, less hostile, less anxious, more at peace. We tend to see commonalities more than differences, and some of the studies say we are even happier. We can definitely make that choice to be happier. This is not what most of us expect. I, for one, come from parents who suffered with mental illness. My father died at 70. My mother recently died at 80. But my grandparents, my grandmothers, lived into their 90s. Now, you could say that some of this was genetic. Some of it is lifestyle choices. I think I have great genes. I think I come from strong genes that have longevity in them. I believe that. My father suffered from mental illness and from a accident that left him with some respiratory issues, which led to his decline. My mother suffered from addiction most of her adult life. And this addiction, I believe, led to many health issues, which led to her life ending younger than her mother's did. her mother lived to be nearly 98. But she never smoked. She rarely drank. She worked until she was 90. She had a good attitude. She had a strong faith. She believed life was good. And she taught me that. She taught me that hard work was a good thing, that keeping your hands busy was a good thing, that creativity brought you joy. My grandmother was a very creative person. She always had some kind of craft project. She was always learning some kind of new crafty thing. She sewed my whole entire life. She sewed until she couldn't see anymore. And I think she would have still been able to sew even though her vision was gone, but the people around her wouldn't allow it. You know, you can wake up every morning with negative thoughts, and you will become that negative, old, crotchety person that society kind of portrays us as being. Or you can start your day with gratitude, with positivity, with a outlook of what kind of wonderful things is this day going to bring me, an outlook of awe and wonder, an outlook of adventure. You can get up, and when your feet hit the floor, even though they may be a little tender or sore, or you may be feeling things that you didn't feel 10 or 20 years ago, you can still get up with enthusiasm and attack the day with joy. If you can do this, you will find that in your third act, these sunset years, that you might actually be happier than you've ever been before. I know I, for one, feel more at peace. I am happier. I enjoy the day more. I enjoy my alone time more than I ever expected I would. Now, do I get sad sometimes? Do I want to have more time with family? Of course I do. You know, I have my days that I sit here and go, woe is me, poor me, nobody loves me, why doesn't anybody call? And then I just kind of kick myself in the butt and say, you know what, get off your butt, pick up the phone, go do something. This is your life. It's not theirs. They're busy. It's not that they're neglecting you. It's not that they don't care about you. It's that they're young and they're busy and they're running around crazy just like you did when you were younger. I've discovered that when you're inside oldness, let me say this again. I've discovered that when you're inside this oldness that they talk about, as opposed to looking at it from the outside, fear kind of goes away because you realize that you are just you and you aren't this old crotchety person. You are just a person. And maybe you're dealing with some things you haven't dealt with in the past, but that doesn't mean that they have to control your life. You don't have to be oppressed or fearful of those things happening. You have to just acknowledge that they're happening and take control over them. Now, I don't want to make getting old sound, romantic and glorious. Obviously, there's no guarantee that you will actually experience growth. In fact, some don't get to experience aging. Some of that is a matter of luck. Some of it is genetic. 1/3, they say, is genetic. I think they're learning more and more every day that our genes are not as predictive of outcomes as they believed in the past. So our genetic predisposition may not be as much in control of what's going on in our bodies and in our minds as we previously thought. But there's much that we can do about the kind of life and how abundantly we live it and how vibrantly we live it by the choices that we make every day. We can do that through good nutrition. We can do that through exercise. We can do that through stepping out of our comfort zone and getting involved in things that we think that we would enjoy, and being around other people who have like minds, like mindset to ours. So 2/3 of what is going on in your life is actually under your control if we assume that 1/3 is genetic. Now, how can we do more to increase our longevity and to increase our growth and to help us to, I guess, stay on that ascension staircase rather than that downward spiral arch? One of the things that I learned is that there's a universal law called entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy means that everything in the world, everything, is in a state of decline and decay, which is indicative of the arch. You know, you hear this, from the day you're born, you're dying. There's only one exception to this universal law, and that's the human spirit. The human spirit can continue to evolve even when the body declines. You can continue to gain wisdom, authenticity, knowledge, peace, spiritual growth, and wholeness. An example that was given was a man named Neil Selinger. He was 57 years old. He was a retired lawyer. He had joined a writers group. Right after joining the writers group, he found out he had ALS. But here's what he had to say. Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS, is a terrible disease. It's fatal. It wastes the body, but the mind stays intact. Here's how he described what was happening to him. As his muscles weakened, his writing became stronger. As he lost his speech, he gained his voice. As he diminished, he grew. As he lost much, he finally found himself. This is exactly what can happen within ourselves as we age. As we start to lose some of these things, we can actually gain so much more. As we let go of expectations, we can gain peace. As we move out of what society expects of us, and we no longer have the demands of children and soccer games and meals and doctor's appointments and, maybe even, we're past the time of even caring for our parents. There is a freedom that comes in this time of life. We're free to travel. We're free to get up when we want. We're free to go to bed when we want. We're free to eat what we want. We have more control over our lives than ever before. When we're born, Spirit is with us, all of us. And we are born with a spirit. And I know many times, especially with women, that gets beat down through violence, through abuse, neglect. Perhaps, your parents suffered from depression. Perhaps they weren't able to love you the way you needed to be loved. Maybe, maybe you were a bullied child. And there is a lot of that psychic pain that we carry with us throughout our lives. This time of life is when we can sit and examine those things and let them go. It is finally time to let them go and finish growing into the person that we have always wanted to be. For me, it began with my marriage falling apart at the age of 58. I'm 58 years old. It had actually kind of been going on for about 3 years before that. So let's say 55, I'm 62 now. I really had to start questioning my life. I had a crisis in faith. I thought God had abandoned me. I did not understand how my marriage could be falling apart. I was so sure that it was so opposed to what God wanted for me. And yet it fell apart. I continued to pray every day for months and months after we separated and quit speaking, for God to restore us, to give me back my marriage, and yet it did not happen. I began to question God, why? Why is this happening? Why have you forsaken me? And I finally came to the realization it was for my own growth. It was for me to step into who I am, who I truly am, who I, Vickie, not I, mother, not I, grandmother, not I, wife, not I, daughter, but I. Who am I at the core of me? Who do I want to be? What do I want to give in this life? What do I want to be remembered as? What choices do I want to make without any consideration for how it might affect others? I began to question and ask God finally, what is it that you want me to do? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to accomplish in this final act? And I realized that in order to know where I was going, I had to know where I had been. I had to come to understand the things that had happened to me in my life. I had to come to the realization that the people that had hurt me were just people doing what they needed to do in their lives, and their intentions were not to hurt me. My perception was that they were to hurt me. I had to let go of my perceptions. I had to find forgiveness in my heart for them and for myself, mostly for carrying this crap around and injuring others in the process. Through the hurt that I was carrying, I hurt others, not because my intent was to hurt others, but because of my reactions from a place of hurt and fear. You realize as you do this, as you go through this process, that your parents were reacting from a place of pain and fear, just as your grandparents were reacting from a place of pain and fear, and it just perpetuates. So we have the privilege of acknowledging this and growing out of this and making amends to our children and to our grandchildren and to our friends and our family, and helping them to understand long before they reach their third act, so that maybe they can move higher up the ladder than we do, so that their spirit and their faith and their peace can evolve, so that their confidence in themselves, so that they can learn who they are, who the I is in their life, long before their third act. This is what we are here for, is to find that wisdom and then to share it and to do it with grace. So much of what we suffer from comes from our perception and from our expectations. Here is a quote from a German psychologist, Viktor Frankl, who spent 5 years in a Nazi concentration camp. Everything you have in life can be taken from you. Can be taken from you except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation. This is what determines the quality of the life you've lived, not whether you've been rich or poor, famous or unknown, healthy or suffering. What determines your quality of life is how you relate to the realities of your life, what kind of meaning you assign them, what kind of attitude you cling to about them, what state of mind you allow them to trigger. We've all met those people that just doesn't matter what happens in their life, they're happy. And we've met those people that no matter what happens in their life, they're sad, they're depressed, they're negative, they're mean. They're just stuck in that loop of negativity. So perhaps the central purpose of this third act of our life, this sunset time of our life, is to go back and try, where possible, to change your relationship with the past. Cognitive research shows that when we're able to do this, it manifests neurologically. Neural pathways are created in the brain. You see, if you have over time reacted negatively to past events and people, neural pathways are laid down by chemical and electrical signals that are sent through the brain. And over time, these neural pathways become hardwired. They become the norm, even if it's bad for you, because it causes stress and anxiety. If, however, you can go back and alter your relationship, revision your relationship to these past people and events, neural pathways can change. And if we maintain the more positive feelings about the past, that becomes the new norm. It's like resetting a thermostat. It's not having experiences that makes us wise. It's reflecting on the experiences that we've had that makes us wise and helps us become whole, brings wisdom and authenticity. It helps us become what we might have been. Women especially, I don't know if I can even say this, but as a woman, this is my perception. We start off whole. We start off with a vision, with anticipation. We are the center of our lives. But then many of us, as we hit puberty, we start worrying about fitting in and being popular. And we become the subjects and the objects of other people's lives. We begin to put other people as the center of our life instead of ourselves. Now, at this time in life, it's possible for us to circle back and for the first time know who we are again. It's time to find that young girl. It's time to find that young spirit. It's time to find that true purpose that you envisioned all those years ago. It's time to just be yourself. Older women are the largest demographic in the world. We can go back and redefine ourselves and become whole. This will create such a magnificent shift in the world, and it will give an example to younger generations so they can recognize, they can reconceive their own lifespan. They can redefine the path their life will take. It's our purpose. It's our obligation. It's our path to a vibrant life. I hope you've enjoyed this. You can follow me on Facebook at My Life Redesigned. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at the same place. Or you can reach out to me at my website, VickieWashburn.com. I hope you go this week and have a vibrant life.
Host of The Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life. Connect with Vickie at www.globalvoiceradio.com. Tune in next week for another edition of The Boomer's Guide to a Vibrant Life on Global Voice Radio, where your message and your voices are heard.